Hi there, this is Solitary from Solitary Films, and welcome to another One Director 4-film series, where I pick a director and ask you to pick a fundamental film, a favourite film, an underrated gem, or a flounder. The film that you either just don't really like that much, or just doesn't land with you. So today it's Billy Wilder, who in my last unofficial rankings was about number 5 in my favourite directors. Again, maybe one day I'll actually do a more extensive ranking. Obviously these things can change. But Billy Wilder is fantastic. He's done so many different films. But again, for the purposes of this exercise, I'll just be picking 4 from each category. Sorry, 1 from each category for a total of 4. See how confusing it is. So for the fundamental one, again, you can go in lots of different directions, but I'm going to go with Apartment, Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine. This is the Arrow Academy special edition with a nice big book. Fred McMurray. This is one of the great romantic comedies, even though with a lot of Wilder films there's a lot of darkness underneath the supposed comedy, because this is a film really about how the rich exploit the poor, how men exploit women. Jack Lemmon playing a kind of Jack Lemmon character, using props as always, and Fred McMurray, kind of a different role for Fred McMurray as well, as just an absolute scumbag who rents out Jack Lemmon's apartment. I suppose other executives use Jack Lemmon's apartment for horizontal jogging with not their wives, and Fred McMurray becomes the main character who's using that, and how Jack Lemmon accepts that up to a point until he accepts it no more. Shirley MacLaine's wonderful, Jack Lemmon's wonderful, and again it has those kind of themes of, it's a comedy, but within that framework there's a lot of darkness. So even Wilder comedies generally have other things going on under the surface. So that's the fundamental. My favourite, again, this can change quite often because there's quite a lot of these films I could argue is my favourite, but I'm going to go with Ace in the Hole, which might have been the first Billy Wilder I ever saw with Kirk Douglas. This is definitely not a comedy. This is jet black, but Kirk Douglas, arguably his finest performance, as a scumbag journalist who's been kicked off most big city papers, ends up in this small desert town, and the paper is basically begging for work, and he comes across this incident where a miner has been trapped, and Kirk Douglas wants to sensationalise it, doesn't actually want the miner to escape and get out because that would end the story, and he would lose his chance to shine and maybe get picked up again by one of the big city papers. The alternate title was The Big Carnival, because Kirk Douglas pretty much just turns it into an absolute a carnival. There's some brilliant one-liners, as there always is in Billy Wilder films, and Kirk Douglas's jaw has never been clenched so much. Again, he's a terrible person, but there is something really compelling about him. And again, it's that fine line between horrible people that are compelling and horrible people that you just want to switch the film off and you don't care. But it's absolutely fantastic. But I could have chosen quite a lot of films as my favourite. Then The Underseen Gem is another film that I could pick as my favourite. It's The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. This is 125 minutes long, and there is the urban legend that originally it was actually 3 hours, but unfortunately we'll never see that cut, which is a shame, because I could certainly do with another hour of this. This stars Robert Stevens as Sherlock Holmes, and Colin Blakely as Watson, Christopher Lee as Mycroft, Sherlock's brother. It involves Queen Victoria and Loch Ness. It's just such an absolute joy. There's talk of heroin and all manner of things. It's just so good. It's about spies and so much fantastic stuff in it. Again, I'm not going to talk about the plot, but you should really go check out The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. It's an absolute masterwork. One of the more underrated Sherlock Holmes films, I think. And an absolute gem that I wish it was 3 hours long, because it's just so good even at 2 hours. It's a world that you want to spend more time in. Now for The Flounder, there's maybe a couple of his earlier films aren't quite the fully fledged. Billy Wilder, you can maybe go with like The Major and the Minor with Ray Milland and Ginger Rogers playing like a 16-year-old girl, which doesn't really work, but that's still a fun little film, plus get Ray Milland. So my flounder is Kiss Me Stupid from 1964 with Dean Martin and Kim Novak. This is, I would say, quite misjudged. It's about Dean Martin, who is essentially playing Dean Martin, who's a singer on his way back from LA, gets stuck in this little one-horse town, and there's this part-time singer-songwriter, Ray Walston, who sees a chance to try and show Dean Martin some of his songs, play some of his songs for him. But Dean Martin is ruled by his crotch. He's basically a sexual predator. And Ray Walston hires Kim Novak, who's a local prostitute called Polly the Pistol, to pretend to be his wife. So he essentially pimps her out to Dean Martin, so Dean Martin will hang about and listen to his songs. It's kind of as creepy as that sounds. Ray Walston, you might not recognise the name, but you'd recognise the face. He's generally a supporting actor. Under normal circumstances, this is a kind of Jack Lemmon role. But I don't know whether Jack Lemmon looked at the script and went, you know what, I'm going to leave this one. I do think Billy Wilder should have probably just left this one. I don't know how in 1964 this wasn't a bit creepy. But it hasn't aged well, put it that way. Apart from anything else, the script just isn't up to par with lots of really good Billy Wilder scripts. Again, this was 1964, but he did this in 1970, so he still had the chops. But it's just it's a not very interesting story. It's quite a sleazy, creepy story, and it's just not a lot of fun. So, as great as Billy Wilder is, he was guilty of having the odd misfire. There's directors that I've talked about so far in this series, and there'll be directors after Billy Wilder that perhaps don't have, as far as, in my opinion, the stinker that Kiss Me Stupid is. But again, this series is more about you commenting and making your choices. So thanks very much for watching the Billy Wilder episode of One Director, 4 Films. I look forward to seeing your answers, and hopefully you'll join me again for more episodes. This is Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films, saying farewell.